Oh.
Oh.
Sorry, I looked away for a second there. Is that us starting this podcast?
Yeah, always. Let's just start it randomly at a bizarre time.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Drive Talk podcast powered by Michelin. I'm here with my legend, my friend, and co-podcast host. Oh, I was going to say Bibendum, but it's you, Ped.
Hey! All right, mate. Different top on this week. Well done.
Yes. Yeah. We clashed, didn't we, last time? Brilliant.
Now then, we're going to vent in this episode, I think, aren't we?
Yes.
We got built up aggression that we need to get rid of. That I'm sure once we get on this subject, many of you will have something to say. So that's a very good reason to put comments in the comment section or send us a DM and let us know what you think. Because we are going to share some of our motoring pet peeves.
Yep.
I don't even know where to start because I've got a long list. I reckon we start with the one that I think is probably the biggest pet peeve or the most common pet peeve of any motorist.
I would guess that you're going to say middle lane hogging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Middle lane hoggers. Those brain dead idiots that sit in lane 2 or lane 3 or lane 4 when there's nothing in the other lanes and they just sit there at whatever speed they're doing. And it just does my head in. For a start, it's illegal. So I'm going to I've done some research. I'm going to head off any kind of justification for middle lane hogging by reading out the highway code.
Oh.
Are we ready? Highway code. Lane discipline. Okay, it's point 264 in the highway code.
Oh, yes.
Here we go. Keep in the left lane unless overtaking. Yep. If you are overtaking, you should return to the left lane when it is safe to do so. And then it says, be aware of emergency services, traffic officers, recovery workers, and other people, or vehicles stopped on the hard shoulder or in the emergency area. If you're driving in the left lane and it is safe to do so, you should move into the adjacent lane to create more space between them and your vehicle, and then move back once you've gone past it. So they're basically just saying, stay in lane 1, and that's the other pet peeve. Sorry, I'm going to add another one here. When they go, oh, slow lane, middle lane, fast lane. No. It's lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, and you should be in lane 1. The end.
Yeah. There is no justification. And what did you call? How did you describe a middle lane driver a minute ago?
Brain dead half-wits.
Brain dead.
Yeah.
The next time you drive by someone sitting in the middle lane, have a good look at them, and they will look brain dead.
They'll be looking ahead, going, "I'm not looking at you. I'm not looking at you."
Yeah. Usually,
the thing is, it's so if you're in lane 2 and there's nothing in lane 1, it is illegal to. In the UK, it's different in some countries. I know you can undertake in America. I'm pretty sure you can undertake in the States. I'm not sure. You probably know what it's like in Australia. But in the UK,
terrible.
You can't.
Yeah.
Because here's another quote from the highway code. Because most people go, well, it's not a problem. It is a problem because you can't. So basically, it says highway code. Point 268. Do not overtake on the left or move lane to your left to overtake. In congested conditions where the adjacent lanes of traffic are moving at similar speeds, traffic in left-hand lanes may sometimes be moving faster than traffic in the right. In these conditions, you may keep up with the traffic in your lane, even if this means passing traffic in the lane to your right. Do not weave in and out of lanes as you overtake. So the only time you can go past someone on the left is in heavy traffic where you're coming up to like some roadworks or something.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that one, isn't it? It's something that we need to ask George, and what's the
Oh,
policeman
it's
that George
policeman,
works
mate.
with?
Yeah,
Yeah, because there's been a lot of situations where, let's say, a 4-lane motorway, and you're in lane 1, and there's that moron. Sorry, what do you call him? Simple person
brain
in
dead
lane
halfwit.
3, brain dead halfway in lane 3,
Yeah,
and you're cruising along lane 1, inside lane, and you're like, and I'm not admitting to it, but maybe I have, maybe I haven't undertaken that car that's sitting out in lane 2 because of 2 reasons. Number 1, because it's just sitting there, and it has
yeah,
been for the last 3 minutes that I've been catching it. And number 2, because there's now also a faster moving car than me and that car approaching in the 4th lane. So
yeah,
if I go to do the overtake, this person is absolutely ruining everyone's life at the moment, because then I'm going to
yeah.
ruin, either slow down lane 4, or lane 4 is going to slow me down. Um, and it's interesting because I think it's something like you said, traffic or slower moving traffic. You're allowed to undertake slower moving, or you're allowed to undertake if there is traffic that's moving slower than you in the outside lanes or something, congestion.
If it's
But
in
it's a
congested traffic, yeah,
congested
you can
traffic.
go
Yeah,
if you're in congested traffic and
yeah,
your lane is moving at a faster pace than the lanes outside you. You can keep
yeah,
up with the flow of traffic, and you can go
yeah.
past someone.
So
The
probably
argument.
yeah.
No, Karen.
No, I was gonna, in an instance like that, then I am breaking the law if I was to do it. But the annoying thing is, I would like to think that if there was a policeman or lady behind me in a car, or a camera had witnessed it, really what they should be focusing on there is the person that's sitting in lane 3 and has been
Yeah.
breaking the law for the last 25 years. I was going to say 25 miles, but actually probably all their life, and not the person that's just sitting in lane 1, cruising along, staying out of trouble and traffic. Um, I, I think the situation that is legal is when you're on, let's use the M25 as an example, everyone jumps out to, and I'm going to use inverted commas, the fast lane,
Yeah.
lane 3, lane 4. They all, straight away, you see them. That's another. I know I'm almost merging onto another one. They come off the merging, the slip road, and
Yeah.
before you've even got, while there's still solid lines with hatches, they will shoot out over those, and that
Yeah.
drives me mad. And then straight out to lane 3 or 4, and you're like, and let's just join that big queue as quickly as possible. And in those cases, you'll get it all the time where you're sitting in lane 4 yourself, and you're like, lane 2 has got no cars in it and is going a
Mm.
lot quicker than lane 4. So then I'll drop down, not necessarily just to overtake, but because I don't like being bunched up with a car behind me and a car in front of me.
Mm.
If you suddenly drop into lane 2, it's a lot less congested, um, and you can move along. So it's, yeah. Anyway,
I think congested traffic's a more nuanced one, isn't it? Because I think
yeah,
I think the big not no, but is switching between lanes to try and get
yes,
into the faster moving lane. That's super dangerous.
and you
The
get that's
argument
enough. Yeah,
the argument I've had for staying in your lane, which is either, especially on these smart motorways, which aren't smart at all. There's another pet peeve. Whoever thought those up is that people say, "Well, I'll stay in lane 2 because lane 1 you've got cars coming on and coming off the motorway, or you might have if there's no hard shoulder, you might have cars stopped. So it's safer to stay in lane 2."
yeah,
And I kind of get that argument, but read the highway code, people, because that's not what it says. It says stay
yeah,
in lane 1, and if there is a vehicle stopped in the hard shoulder, you can pull out as you go past it and then come back. If you're approaching an exit or a slipway coming on, and there's vehicles coming onto the motorway, pull into lane 2, wait for them to come on, adjust the speed as necessary, and then come back into lane 1. You should
yeah,
always try and get back to lane 1. And the
yeah,
annoying thing, then they go, well, I'm sat in lane 2. I'm doing 70, so you can't overtake me anyway.
yeah,
Again, that's not in the highway code.
yeah,
Just it. I'm pretty sure half of the congestion problems in the UK motorway network is if everyone moved over to lane 1,
yeah,
the capacity of the network and the capacity of the road would improve so much because if you're sat in lane 2 or 3 and you're doing 65, 70 miles an hour, and there are people want to come past you and they can't, that's effectively 2 miles behind you. The traffic's probably stopped.
Yeah. I think there is a bit of a caveat and not argument to that, but in the sense that, again, if we use the M25 or a major motorway in the UK, lane 1 is predominantly full of trucks and they're all limited to, what, 60 miles an hour?
I think it's
Trucks,
50,
caravans,
56
vans,
to 60.
56, yeah. So, and as we all know, unless you're traveling at 3 a.m, when all our motorways, for whatever reason, seem to have roadworks on them, but with nobody actually doing the works, they're just all down to one lane. I don't know what that is all about. There's definitely some money laundering going on there. But yeah, so the problem with the UK is if you do stick by that, go into lane 1 and the motorway is quite busy, you can quite easily stitch yourself up by going, oh, I could duck into lane 1 for 20 seconds because there's a truck, 300 meters down the road. But as soon as you do that, if lane 2 is quite congested, then suddenly you end up getting a bit stuck in lane 1. And also then you're approaching. You're very rare. So I think there is definitely a big element of common sense involved in it all, as to when and where you choose to do it. But sometimes I'll exaggerate I'm going into lane 1, even if it is for 5 seconds, just to try
Indicate.
just to try and get that person that's sitting in lane 2 or lane 3 to just understand. But of course, they just don't. They're so unaware of their surroundings and everything that's going on. They end up flashing you if you do that. Oh, what are you doing? Oh my God, where do you come from? Oh. It's like,
you talk about trucks being in lane 1 doing 56. The worst thing in the world is when you come up behind some Passat doing a fuel challenge at 55 miles an hour, and you can't.
Yeah. And
you can't get past them.
There's some old guy driving and he's got his grandson next to him going, slow down, you're doing 57, you should be doing 55 miles an hour. And the granddad's going, yes, there's a truck behind us. But you know what? This, and I'm sure, as you said, this is one of the biggest pet peeves. It's one of the worst offending things in the UK. It's something that doesn't seem to. I've seen police cars and all sorts. No one seems to do anything about it. And from a country where they'll stick speed vans and cameras in places that aren't necessarily dangerous hotspots, they're just places that catch drivers out doing 76 miles an hour and 70. Why they don't capitalize on doing that, making money out of nicking middle lane drivers, I don't know. That's really frustrating because they could make a fortune out of it. But I guess what it all stems from is actually day 1 or before day 1 of getting a license. When you're getting your driving tests, I might be wrong, but I think you still don't need to drive on motorways to get your driving test.
No.
So you haven't got an instructor. I'm sure if you were taught even like an hour's lesson on motorway driving, one of the main things would be lane discipline, keeping left. And if you learnt that, at least 50% of people that pass their tests would hopefully continue that on. But otherwise, like, not trying to be funny, how do people, and I'm not defending these people at all, but like no, I'm not at all. But I mean, they're not actually educated, are they? So in that sense.
No.
And why? Why are they not? Why do we not have that as part of our driving lesson?
One of the reasons I got told was one of the reasons we don't have motorway driving in the test is Cornwall. Because the test is only an hour long and Cornwall has no motorways. So if you're learning to drive in Cornwall, you'd have to go to further than out of Exeter. So I think M5 would be your nearest motorway.
Okay.
But I think that's probably just some down the pub story someone made up. But no, I don't disagree. I mean, you can learn lane discipline like that on a dual carriageway. I went on a dual carriageway on my first ever driving lesson. So I think because the problem is for me, and it sounds, some people will be sitting there going, "What's the problem?" It's not. Well, it's a problem because it causes issues when someone's in lane 2 or lane 3. That's when people start to overtake them on the inside, and the danger with that is people aren't expecting to be undertaking, so they might come back into lane one and not look over their shoulder and drive into you. Then you've got people who then they'll go pass and then cut across all the lanes. Not that I've ever done that, indicating and then make a point of saying that you're in the wrong lane, or brake test people in the worst case.
Oh
It's
no,
just
yeah, no.
it's just
Yeah.
bad, and there is no excuse for it. And I agree, the police should do more. But then I'm not being funny. You can go and shoplift in most towns in this country, or cut bikes off of bike racks with an angle grinder, and no one does anything about that. So the last thing the police are going to do is do anything about middle lane driving. But yeah. So there's peeve number one. Rah.
Well, that's good. That was 15. I was worried. I was like, how are we going to make an entire
Oh,
podcast episode out of
I
this?
wasn't.
And we're
I
15 minutes
wasn't.
in and we just talked about one thing. That's
No.
great.
And I bet most people listening are going "Rrr" as well. You mentioned the next one. I hadn't got it on my list, but I had to put it down, and this is going to upset a few people. So you're on a dual. It's always dual carriageway road's the worst because there's just 2 lanes, and you're on a dual carriageway road, and there's a line of HGVs on the inside in lane 1, and you're coming up to a big hill, and all those HGVs are limited to like 56 miles an hour. And then they come up to the hill, and just before they get to the hill, one of the lorries decides to overtake one of the other lorries, and they're both limited to 56. And then they both drive up the hill, blocking both lanes at 56. Been there?
Oh, mate.
There is actually, they did an experiment on the A34 just near Oxford, but there's a big hill going up towards Abingdon.
Yep.
And they actually did an experiment where they barred HGVs overtaking each other going up that hill.
Yep.
Now, I know, and I'm going to, my mate Paul from Cycle Sunday, I know he'll probably be listening to this, jumping up and down. He's not driving a lorry anymore. He's learning to drive a train, one of the kind of the big
cool.
heavy goods trains, which is very cool, a freight train. But he would say that one of the things that car drivers don't realise is nowadays HGV drivers are often incentivized on their green driving.
Okay.
So they'll have, they don't just have a tacho in the car anymore. They have these kind of efficiency, a bit like you do in a lot of EVs, where they'll give you like an efficiency score, and they'll be incentivized to get the best efficiency possible. So they're using the least diesel possible. And all of that's about maintaining a speed and momentum and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the reasons why that might be the case. But even so, that just does my head in.
Well, it's funny you said that, and the first road that came to mind for me was the A34, and part of the reason is that it's about 15 minutes from me, and it's the road that I use to come down when we film at Podium Place. Right? It is, and as
it's
you know,
that bit of road.
It's that bit of road, but it's actually the entire. So from the Bicester junction on the M40 all the way down to the Newbury junction where Podium Place is, sometimes that entire strip, and I know you're going to laugh at me because I'm always a bit late, sometimes a bit more late, but
I've never noticed that.
I remember once, it would have been probably about a year ago, coming down to meet you and Pat there, and as I came off the roundabout onto the A34 at the M40 junction, a truck in front of me, it was an oil or a tanker truck. It started this overtake, and I'm not kidding you or exaggerating. That overtake lasted 45 minutes. And when I was younger, I used to get a lot more road rage. Like, when I was really young, and I'm sure some people can relate to this, I was a lot more hot-headed, and got myself in some sticky situations when I was much younger, and I learned along the way. And I very much try not to ever get into road rage. I can get annoyed in a car, but I've never been so close to wanting to rip this guy's head off after 45 minutes. Because, well, in fact, not just his head, but the guy that was driving the truck on the in lane 1 as well. Because
you think, well, surely just lift off and fucking let him pass.
And honestly, there was about 10 minutes in, and he got about 2 feet away from being safe to pull in, and then the inside truck started getting faster, and this went on for 45 minutes. mate. You can imagine everyone was so angry, and I went past on a horn, and obviously that did absolutely nothing. But it is just I understand. Listen, yeah, I have a lot of respect for HGV drivers and coach drivers, and like you said, they're having to deal with us in cars
Yeah.
much more times than we have to deal with them. And you see it all the time, people cutting up trucks at junctions and pulling in front of them and braking hard, and you're like, what is wrong with you? And half the time you're like, you can't even see, like, trust me, the blind spots in those trucks, you can't even see a car. As we know, you've seen the instances, wasn't it? A car
The guy
throttle,
driving
was
along
it?
with a car stuck underneath it
It was the
sideways.
Golf. Not only could he not see it, but he can't feel a 1,500 kilo Golf going. Can you imagine, like, what we're talking about here? They're wrecking machines. But yeah, that's that
I mean, I,
A34 and that particular thing.
yeah, I will. That's a point well raised. So one of the things I will kind of jump in here in terms of if you like backing up the truckers is, um, and it's talking to Paul. The thing that drives them mad and the most dangerous thing is when cars cut in front of a big HGV. So
Yeah.
if you're in a big kind of articulated 40+ ton HGV, I mean they've got good brakes, but they don't stop on a dime. They don't stop like a road car, and it's so dangerous. You need to when you are pulling in front of an HGV, leave lots of space, and also it going back to that efficiency thing. If they have to brake, they have to then build the momentum back up. It really annoys them and doing that. So it's just a consideration thing. But yeah, no, that there's me. So I'm going to get truckers hating me, and then that last bit is to make them love me again.
Yeah.
Next up. Oh dear, where are we going with this? I'm going to preface this by saying I live in Chichester, and in Chichester there are quite a lot of. It's like a retirement capital of the UK. There's lots of quite elderly drivers who, put it quite frankly, shouldn't be. No, not me. I'm not
Oh,
that old,
sorry.
you git.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's debatable whether they should be driving at all. But the next one that really does my head in is when people aren't driving up to the speed limit. And I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that the speed limit is a target, but when I was following someone down the A road that's near my house, that is a national 60, and someone's doing 35 miles an hour down a national 60, and it's a clear road, it's open, it was dry road conditions, there was no fog. You often get it around here when it's dark, people slow down to like 20 miles an hour because they don't know how to drive in the dark. And that for me, that's maybe even more dangerous than middle lane hoggers
Yeah.
because it forces people, after a while you start to get impatient, and it forces people to look for overtakes that aren't on. And it does my nut. But then you're the same, but the next thing winds you up as well. The next thing that they do. Where
Yeah.
they do
Well, yeah.
40 along a national
Yeah.
60, and then they get to a 30 and don't change speed.
Yeah. That's, I think, as you say, that I think that there's also a conversation to be had, and it's a harsh one because we're all getting older. We will all be those 70, 80-year-old drivers one day, hopefully, if we live that long. And I mean, I've noticed it as a 45-year-old man. My sharpness in a car, I feel like, has dropped away a little bit, especially if I jumped in a go-kart now. I think I've lost a bit of my sharpness that I had even 2 or 3 years ago. And I predict that from now on until my 70s, I'm going to lose that sharpness, is going to continue to lose,
Wait till you
unfortunately.
get to 52, mate. It's terrible.
Well, yeah, it's tragic then. But and when you do get to, I watched, like, my old man. I learned everything about driving watching my dad as a youngster. He's always been a very competent driver, but as he gets older, his driving ability definitely has dropped away a bit. And then you get extreme cases of, like you talked about there, someone doing 35. Now, is that because if they did 40 miles an hour, they can't compute what's going on in front of them at that speed, or they can't react quick enough to stuff? Probably. And then the question is, like, should they be on the road? And I know, but it's a horrible conversation to even or discussion to have, because you're like, well, a lot of these people need their wheels. That's their freedom. That's how they go and see their friends or their family. And if they didn't have a car and a license, they'll then be very remote and stuck because they're not able. They're a lot older. But there is a point where you're like, if you can't do more than 35 miles an hour in a 60 zone, then your ability is very limited. And should you be behind the wheel of a 2-ton car with 300 horsepower, whatever it is, probably not. And I know that's going off topic a little bit, but
No, it's not. It's not at
it's a,
all. But
you know,
for me, driving is a privilege, not a right.
no,
And in
no,
this
exactly.
country, you can
Yeah.
pass your test at 17 years of age
Yeah.
and not do anything at all in terms of continuation training or anything until you're 70. Then all you have to do is reapply for your license until you're 75. And then I think at 75, you might need a eye test, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It
You know,
is.
so you've got people driving around at the moment who passed their test at 17 and they're now in their 70s. Imagine
Mm,
what cars were like when they passed their test and what cars are like today. So
yeah.
I don't understand why. I mean, if you're a pilot of a light aircraft like our mate James,
Yeah.
you have to do a certain number of hours every year. You have to kind of do retests and all that kind of stuff. And I don't
Yeah.
understand why it's not the case with driving.
Yeah.
And I know the argument will be we haven't got enough driving instructors and testers to get the new people through the test, let alone having to retest every 5 years or whatever. But for me personally, I think every 10 years, because 5 years is probably too soon, you should
Yeah.
have to take a retest because
Yeah.
things change. When was the last time you read the highway code?
Yeah.
I read it when I did my advanced driving, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
but but
Oh.
but for that, so here we go. For my masters, I have to. It's not a lifetime qualification.
No.
It's only valid for a certain number of years. Then I have to do the test again.
Well, it's like a race license as well, and I'm sure a lot of that is because of monetary values, as in, they make a little
Yeah,
bit of money every year. But the race license, every, what is it, 3 to 5 years, you have to have eye tests and health tests
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and all
And
these things.
and
And
that,
yeah,
and I honestly don't. I don't see a problem with that. And I know, I know friends who have relatives who are driving that
yeah,
they will admit should not be driving.
yeah,
And it's a like you say, it's an issue. It comes to a point where it is an issue, and it's a very difficult conversation to have. And I had it. My family had it with my late father when he was starting to get problems with dementia and memory and all that kind of stuff. And he had a couple of little bumps and a couple of little scrapes, and
mm,
and in the end, we just basically took the keys off him and moved his
yeah,
car on, so he couldn't drive because
yeah,
that's the only way you can do it.
yeah,
Because everybody will say, "I'm okay," and
yeah,
things happen so quickly, and it's like you said, it's the sharpness of an emergency stop or the spatial awareness of what's around you.
yeah,
And that for me, they're not doing the speed limit. And I know lots of people are going to say, if you do any kind of further driver training, the phrase they use is make progress. You want to make progress up to and not beyond whatever the limit is for that road. And
yeah,
if it's a national 60, it's a national 60 for a reason. It's safe to do 60 miles an hour down that road,
yeah,
depending on the conditions. Clearly, if it's pissing it down with with rain, or there's fog,
yeah,
or it's snowing or
yeah,
something, it's not.
yeah.
But I think it's
Especially today, if there are, because there's not many 60 single carriageways left out there in the
no,
UK,
no, no.
because
It's when you
they'll
get off
try
when you want
any.
to do 120. Sorry, 60.
Yeah, no, but literally, right? Like, there's a small incident these days on any kind of 60 road, they'll make it a 50. And small incident or fatality or something on a 50, break it a 40, regardless of what that incident. It could have been someone on a stolen motorbike with no
Yeah,
helmet, killed
yeah,
themselves. Oh well, we've got to make the road safer. It's like, well, wait a second, let's just isolate this incident a little bit. But where I
yeah,
live, I've got a lovely flowing road, similar to, actually not as beautiful as down near yours, but it's a lovely bit of road, and it's a 50. It used to be a 60. And like you said, you'll get people regularly doing high 30s, if you're lucky, 40 along there in a 50. It's a beautiful, the vision, it's a nice wide road. The tarmac, for once, is really smooth, and the
good.
lines are really clear. And there's very few big trucks and stuff that go along there. It's mostly just
Yeah,
passenger vehicles. And you just think, it angers you so much. But you touched upon it quickly, and we need to talk a little bit more about it because it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Is the person that does that 35, 38 mile an hour along a 50 or a 60 mile an hour, and then you approach a village, which these days is, or a town, they're either 30 if you're lucky, or some of them are 20s. And what do? They don't change anything. So they go from, and then you look around and you might pass and they'll park up wherever. And a lot of the time, these people aren't necessarily old age pensioners, or they're just really bad drivers that in their head probably think, oh, well, I'm driving safe at 38 miles an hour in a 60, but then continue to drive 38 in a 30 or a 20. And like, they couldn't be more wrong from what they're thinking. This is me assuming what they're thinking, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right in thinking that. They're like, oh, well, we'll sit below the speed limit and be safe, but yet we'll do nearly double the speed limit in a built-up area. No. And it's just, but you can predict it, can't you? The next time anyone listening or watching, I'm sure you know exactly what we're talking about. When you're following someone like that, and you get to a 30 zone, you slow down for the 30, and they just continue on at exactly the same pace and disappear. And it's just like...
and then you catch them when you come out the village or the town, the other end. And you're like, hey, I've got some free road. You get about a quarter of a mile down the road, and there they are, 35.
Yeah, you catch them, and then there's another village, and then they follow. It's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that again, they need their brains looking at, because it's just not the way to drive, and that is not a safe way of driving. If that's what your thought process is, forget it. The one place where you really, in my opinion, is you really need to adhere to speed limits. 20s questionable. I think some of the 20s that they've introduced around us, especially, like the villages, are pretty, like,
we've
they're
got
not
the Welsh
built.
to thank for that, haven't we?
Oh, I mean, it's just crazy. Some school zones, and 100%. Like, the slower the better. But some of the place, like, there's villages around here that have got about 4 people that live in them, and they're, you go through them now, and it's like, what am I doing 20 for here? It's clear I could see as far as daylight. But what I was getting to is the one place where you really should adhere to speed limits, in my opinion. It's like, built up areas, 20s, 30s. They're there. They are there for a reason. But yeah, anyway.
Well, I think technically, just covering the legal basis, Joe, I think you should adhere to all speed limits in all conditions on all roads.
Oh, yes. That's what I meant.
Yes.
Yes.
Next up, speed is not sticking to the same speed.
Yes.
And you always notice this for me when you're on like a dual carriageway and you've got your cruise control on. Not adaptive cruise, because that kind of masks it a little bit. If you got the old I'm going to call it old-fashioned cruise control, just where it sets the speed.
I prefer
you're driving
that,
along and you got your cruise control set to 70.
Yep.
And you're coming up behind this car, and you're like, and they're doing like 65, and you're like, oh, bloody hell. So you stay, and then you go past them and pull back in and set your cruise back to 70. And within a couple of minutes, they've bloody overtaken you. And then they pull in and then bloody slow down to 65. So you have to overtake them again.
Or you get to a hill and they either slow down or speed up because they're... I'll tell you what, when I was 17, when my first girlfriend I had, she had a little Volkswagen Polo of that era, 17, 18. So we're talking a long time ago. Would have been 98-ish, 99. And she, at the time, it was like the best thing in the world because I didn't have a car, I didn't have my license. And she had this little Polo, which was quite new at the time. And it was like, oh my God, this is awesome. We can go here, there, and everywhere. She was so bad at driving on the motorways that I remember we gave my friend Emil a lift to Wales once. And we got out of the services and we went into the toilet, and he literally grabbed my head and was like, what is wrong with your girlfriend? Like, it was like the throttle pedal for her was like... it was really weird. It was like flat on the floor. It was only a 1 litre Polo, so it had absolutely no go. Flat on the floor, she'd get up to about 75, off the accelerator, and would slow down to about 50. Flat on the floor, up to 75, off the accelerator. Imagine doing that all the way to Wales. Like, and I I didn't have my license at the time, and I tried to be that backseat driver just to give her a little bit of an understanding that actually the throttle pedal is not a button; it's a
It's not a micro
modulated.
switch.
It's not a micro switch. But I mean, but that's like, yeah. Now it's like an
On,
exaggerated version of
off.
what you're just talking about. Yeah, it's like Jesus, just find the right level. And also 99% of modern cars have got cruise control now, so just use it. Like it's it makes your life a lot easier in most circumstances.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'm
yeah.
getting worked up on this.
I know. Yeah, right. You've got to have some. You got to have some bike ones.
Yeah. So it's interesting on a motorbike. And it's similar to being a cyclist. Obviously, you're an avid cyclist these days, and I did a lot of cycling when I was younger, especially around London and stuff. So I always see both sides of the story. I know the majority of motorists, especially online, have got this whole persona of hating cyclists, but I also know that a lot of motorists that follow our journeys are also avid cyclists, and they do cross over, don't they? Most guys and girls with nice cars might have nice bicycles or motorbikes. So we can all see it from both sides of the story. And although motorbikes and cyclists can be annoying, also cars can be really annoying when you're on the other side. And something that I noticed on a motorbike with my recent riding in recent times is number one is tailgating. And obviously that also happens in cars. But in a car, it's annoying and stresses you out because you just don't want the person that close to you. But on a bike or a bicycle, it's very different because you know that if you have to stop quickly for whatever reason, and if they do hit you, then you're in big trouble. Whereas they're absolutely fine because they're in their comfort cage. And so tailgating is one thing that really annoys me on a motorbike. And a lot of the time, the only solution is to accelerate away from the issue or find a safe place to let that person get past you so they're not tailgating you. But again, that happens a lot in towns and villages randomly. Like you're slow down to 30 and they'll just be right on your bumper or your rear wheel. It's like, what are you doing? Like just chill. Like we're in a town, Um, and the other thing while we're on motorbikes, something else that is annoying as a motorcyclist and happens a lot more in the UK than it does when you get on the continent is is cars not giving you enough space, not necessarily when they're overtaking you, because to be honest, that doesn't happen too much when I'm on the bike because you go along at a decent pace. But it's when you're on a single carriageway and cars are coming in the other direction through a set of twisties, and we all do it when you're allowed to, and the lines are dotted. If it's clear, you'll cut over to the other side of the lane because it's kind of safer and easier to do so if it's
And
clear.
if you don't do that on your advanced driving test, you will fail.
Oh well, there you go. See, I was.
Well, that
I'm hoping.
certainly mark against you.
Yeah, well, yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's easier, it's shorter, it's whatever. But when you're on the bike, it seems that drivers come in the other direction to take advantage of that, or take advantage of you being on a bike and go, oh well, they're on a bike, so instead of having one lane, I've actually got my lane and a half to play with because they should be stuffed up against the curb. And it does amaze me sometimes that, yeah, you're clearly approaching a vehicle, they can clearly spot you from a mile away.
Yeah. Go
And
Power Ranger.
but yet they'll still cut off half your lane, and that obviously becomes very dangerous very quickly on a bike, because the very last thing you want to have on a bike is any kind of head-on collision with a car, because
Well,
yeah,
any collision pulled bike, it doesn't matter which direction you hit a car from, it's going to hurt, right?
yeah, exactly. But I think head-on would be maybe your worst nightmare. And yeah, so I guess from a biker's point of view, I do look at that. But I remember when I passed my BMW rider training back in 2022, you talked about looking at the highway code. And actually, that was the last time we extensively looked at the highway code. And I learned so much, probably a very similar, I don't know because I haven't done my advanced driving, but we delved into so much more about hazards and spatial awareness and thinking ahead and vision and all these things that I reckon probably cross over quite nicely. And it made me automatically a much better. As soon as I got back in my car, I was a much better driver because
Yeah.
I'd kind of like gone, things that I was a bit blasé about. I was like, no, like you need to be on it. You need to be thinking like you were on the bike in the car because it's better for you and it's better for other bikers. So definitely made me a better, more aware road car driver,
Yeah.
learning to ride a motorbike. And I can respect, and I'm sure the same with you and your cycling as well. You're probably a lot more aware of cyclists, for instance, than most other drivers are because you are one of them sometimes. So, you're.
Yeah, I think that, and I used to ride horses, and that's the ultimate, really, for
Oh
me.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
is if any car drivers out there have ever like gone too close to a horse or not given the horse room, my answer would have always been, right, get out of your car, get on this horse, and I'll drive past at that speed, at that distance, and see what happens, because
yeah,
it's it's not good. So yeah, no, I think there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? And almost like an arrogance to some drivers that they think that they are, they have the right of way, and they don't have to worry about bikes, and they don't need to give much room to bikes because bikes don't pay road tax.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, neither do you. I haven't had road tax since the 50s. You pay
yeah,
vehicle
yeah,
excise duty and all that. So yeah, no, the bike thing, I think I've heard that a lot actually. I've got quite a few friends that are that ride bikes, and they all say the same thing. They all say that level of awareness and planning, which it's exactly the same in advanced driving, that you have to
yeah,
do, makes you a better driver. Or sorry, better. Well, yes, a better driver. Yeah.
yep, yep.
Cool. Here's the thing. Going up, the one thing that winds me up a bit, but I know you can do it as long as you do it safely, is in queuing traffic on a bike flying up the middle.
Yes, I.
What's the official line on that?
I don't know.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, that's not the sort of thing we were taught. Actually, I don't. Maybe we were told something about it when we did our week away, but I it I find that very difficult to do personally. Like I think that's too much of a risk. And
Yeah,
ironically, we've just been talking about learning things from a bike and taking it into a car. In my head, it's the other way around because I've seen in a car too many times people just changing lanes for the sake of it on a junction.
yeah,
And I'm like, when you okay, if you're creeping up, if it's completely standstill traffic, and there's a
yeah,
big gap and the lanes are,
yeah,
then why not? Why not? If because on a bike you can see 10 cars ahead, so
yeah,
you can see that the traffic's not moving. And if you've got enough talent to get through there without going near cars, then in my opinion, why not make up a bit of room? You're on a bike, you're going to be gone. It's not like you're cheating the lane because you're just on a small vehicle that's going to be off by the time you get going. But
yeah,
if it's a narrow line of traffic or it's a moving line of traffic, and I've seen bikes come down the inside so fast, and
yeah,
that scares me because
yeah. Me
not
too.
so I use my mirrors, but they could still approach me pretty quickly, let alone a person 3 cars along who is that person that sits in the middle lane who's got absolutely no spatial awareness, no talent, is brain dead. If they decide to suddenly change lanes, then it's game over for that motorbike.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think it's a bit of a, there's too many variables there, but I think in
yeah,
general it's a dangerous thing to do unless it's really safe to do so.
yeah,
It's a bit like when you get up to a set. I've had it before, like a temporary set of traffic lights. The other day I was out near me. There's lots of temporary lane closures, so down to one lane, and you get up to a set of traffic lights, and there's like, I'll get there and there'll be like maybe 2 cars, and then I can see there's a gap in front of the car in front. So if there's nothing coming, then I might go away around and sit in that gap. But still, I can see the lights. It's safe to do so. When the lights go green, I'm out of there, and I've not upset anyone. I've not
yeah,
got in their way. I've not slowed them down. But I'm selfishly out of danger there at that point. I'm not in a
yeah,
line of traffic. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's certain, again, it just uses maybe your own common sense to just go, is this safe? And do I need to gain that extra 5 seconds? Sometimes no. Sometimes it's safer to get ahead of the flow of traffic and get out of that situation. So I think it's a
yeah,
case by case situation, but I think you do see some sketchy stuff. Like when you're on a
oh
motorway
mate,
and there's you're in like lane 2 or 3, and then a motorbike, or you're in lane 3 on a 3-lane motorway, and you're overtaking a car in lane 2, and then this motorbike comes flying down between you and lane 2. I mean, that's just silly. That's stupid. But
Yeah.
they're usually wearing jeans and a pair of trainers as well, and no gloves, and you're just like, oh well, you're just an accident
Whatever.
waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's interesting, but there's a lot of sketchy stuff that goes on out there.
Because I know when I did my masters, there was quite a change in some of the observations for car drivers based on electric motorbikes and the faster electric scooters. Because if you're in queue in traffic and it's a normal bike, you can kind of hear it coming, because bikes are, generally speaking, you can hear them coming, can't they? Because they're much more noisy. The problem with these electric bikes is you just can't hear them because they don't make a noise. So we were told, or I was certainly drilled, to make sure you do lots of shoulder checks and things.
Yep.
Rather than just looking at your mirrors, for that very reason. But yeah, no, it's like most things. You watch car drivers weaving in and out of traffic on a motorway, and you just think, really, you're just asking for trouble. But when I'm the same. When I see a bike coming up the middle of a lane of queuing cars, or squirting between traffic on a motorway, I can't watch it. It just terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me.
And it's not fair on anyone. I mean, it's not fair on, because that's an accident waiting to happen, and it's a poor innocent driver of a car that's going to be half the party of that accident, and it's not going to be their fault, probably.
Yeah.
So that's what's really not fair about it. And not only is it not going to be their fault, but the motorbike rider's going to come off worse, if not dead. And so that person's then going to have to live with, in their head, oh my God, I was part of an accident that killed he or she. It's not. It's just, for what reason? It's not cool, not good.
No. I've got one more.
Okay.
And manners maketh a man and cost nothing. So you're driving along single carriage road, and there's a car parked on your side of the road. So oncoming traffic has priority, and you pull over and stop to let the other car through, and they drive through and don't wave to say thank you. Mate, of all of the things we've talked about, that is the one. I'm not so sure I'm allowed to say this. Pat, you can blank it out if it's not appropriate.
Say it.
Boils my piss. It just, I'm like, as soon as you see it, I'm like, it's all right. You're like, thanks. Or you do some really over exaggerated thing, and then it's like, ugh.
It doesn't take
or
much,
if you let someone out, of a junction because you're being, or you give way to someone and they don't wave, or there's pedestrians are coming up to, and you'll stop because it's queuing traffic, and you let a pedestrian across, and they just keep walking because they got their headphones on and they don't say thank you. Well,
especially
it's getting me angry now.
as a cyclist, when you're on the road and you make a concerted effort to stop at a zebra crossing or something in town, or a crossing anywhere, because look, I know that people crossing in many cases have priority, but if you see pedestrians walking along, you're like, oh, I think they're going to cross, and so you start slowing down, then you realize they ask you stop, and you've stopped your you're riding along and you've made a big effort to stop. Yeah, exactly. And they just walk, and you're like, hello. I mean, we can all be more appreciative of things like that. There's absolutely no harm. That's something I love about biking, even in the UK a little bit, but when you go onto the continent, and especially when you're down like in the Alps and stuff, and everyone just, you give each other a wave or whatever.
Kind of do that, don't they?
Yeah, the head shake, and it's just, it's just small gestures. It's almost just like, hey, how's it going? And it's just a nice thing. It's like, be nice to people. And if someone lets you out, just be nice. Just acknowledge them. Like, we all have busy days. We could all be stressful, but just, it just makes you happy, and it encourages you to do more.
I do that when I'm driving and I see another GTS driver. We just wave each other.
Oh, yeah, it's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my last point. Is GTS drivers? They're all very.
See,
They're all,
do you like the way I fed you that one?
we're just talking off camera, and yeah, I, my most recent one of my most recent videos on YouTube about the new 992.2 GTS. There's been a
Oh,
lot of fantastic comments on there and stuff, and the video's done really well. But I've obviously, because I've come up with a couple of negatives, which, well, one second, can we just have this conversation? Because on YouTube, if you're too positive about something, then you've been paid by the manufacturer, or your verdict or your opinion's not valid. But if you're too negative about something, then you're completely wrong. And so, yeah, I've come up against, because I said a couple of negative things about that car, I think
what were
I've
your
really upset.
negatives?
Um, well, I said, as a 911, which we all love and breathe. Those of us that are fortunate enough to drive 911s, modern ones or otherwise, we can all agree, I hope, that it is probably the best sports car ever. Um, and it comes in lots of different shapes and sizes and guises and engine. Nowadays, you can have, naturally aspirated, turbo, single turbo, double turbo, T hybrid, you name it, manual, automatic, whatever, PDK. It's got everything, roof on, roof off, whatever. So the GTS T hybrid, it's the first of this, this modern era hybrid system. And although I said Porsche typically have absolutely nailed it in execution, it's the way it works, the way it all comes together is fantastic. But I jumped out of a base 911, which still retains the regular 3-litre flat six twin turbo, completely non-hybrid, old school, if you like, combustion engine. And jumping out of that car and straight into the GTS, to me, a lot of the things in the GTS did feel a little bit artificial compared to the base car. And that was only because I jumped out of that car and straight into that one. But I said, in isolation, if you jumped in this GTS, you would think it was absolutely brilliant, which it mostly is. But there's a few things about that car. The sounds, I think I said there's fake sound being pumped around the cabin. Some people have said that that's not true. Some people have said that it is. Who knows? To me, it doesn't sound very authentic. It sounds bizarre. Sounds more like your 4-cylinder on a cold start. It sounds more like your old 4-cylinder GTS. I didn't say that was a bad thing, but it just sounds a bit odd. Like you're in a 6-cylinder Porsche and it sounds like a 4-cylinder when you fire it up. Few little bits and pieces. That's our job, is to point out things that we discover.
Yeah.
But as soon as you do, if it's slightly negative or different, the GTS club, we've got GTSs. How dare you say anything bad about? I test drove one at Reading recently, and you and Harry.
Hey guys, Patrick here. Now, Joe continued ranting about Porsche owners forums and GTS owners for about another 15 minutes or so. So I thought I'd cut the episode here before it bored all of you as much as it bored me and Pete, who is a proud GTS owner. So thanks so much for listening. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and make sure you leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts or your podcast listening app. As always, thanks to Michelin UK for powering this episode. Make sure you follow them on Instagram at Michelin UK, and we will see you at the next episode. Drive safe. Cheers.